The great ones, they're different. They really are. Not better, just different. Sure, there's a physical power, a mental strength, a complex but resolute constitution too. There's a whole lot more than just the measurables. That's something else, that intangible. It separates us from them. Welcome to the Legends series on Andy Raymond Unfiltered. This guy, he wasn't blessed with blinding speed. He didn't have a magical sidestep or the silky skills of those he shared the field with. But this guy, he was the one others had to have in their team. But who is Kevin Campion?
Well, that is a tough question. Mate, he's a family man. He's a partner. He's a great father, and he's invested into his kids. Went through divorce about 5 years ago, and didn't have the opportunity to. I didn't put myself in a position to be able to put a roof over the kids' heads.
Yep.
So yeah, went through a difficult period. Had to go through court to get access to my kids. So, and that was a 2-year process basically, where I was one day, tucking the kids into bed every day, and giving them a secure family life.
Yep.
The next minute I was living in my car and trying to find somewhere to live. Luckily enough, a mate took me in, put a roof over my head, and sort of had to rebuild my life within a 2-year period. But it really missed basically 2 years of my kids' lives in that time, and it was really tough. But I've come through the other end, and I've had to build up a trust with the three of my kids, and
Yep.
Certainly done that over the last 3 years. Probably overcompensated a bit, but that's just me as a person and me as a father, I guess. But yeah,
Having been through almost an identical situation, it's complex, it's emotional, it's difficult. It's the nightmare that none of us as a young bloke ever saw coming. Geez, it puts things into perspective. You can have a wonderful career on television or a wonderful career on the football field. None of it means shit, does it?
no, it doesn't. Look, family's everything. I miss my grassroots. I'm from a little town in North Queensland, just south of Mackay, called Serena, and I love going up there. The people are so genuine, and the further you go north, the more genuine they are, and it's a great little community there. And I'm fortunate that I was brought up in that particular area.
Yep.
It's a great community spirit there, and I think it's reflected a lot on me as a person.
Living in the car, mate, very tough times.
Yeah, it was tough. I parked myself up near the Churchill Surf Club that had some public toilets and showers there. So, it was tough, but it's not as tough as not seeing your kids every day. So, I knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel. But, that's just life, I guess. A lot of people go through a lot more crap than I did. So. Probably, I'm very fortunate that if I've got a good support base here on the coast, mate wise, more than anything. A lot of my friends didn't know about the situation, but there was only a select few that knew, and they were willing to help out.
As we get older, we learn the circle of trust, and the circle of trust that you want around you, it gets smaller in size. None of us need 50 friends, you need 5 good ones.
Yeah, and that's right. And it's really tough. Like, you wouldn't want anyone to go through it, but I'm just glad that I've been through it. I've got a great experience there, and look, if anyone's going through that like I did, I'm going to ask them how they're going and what can I do for you. That's for sure.
From Serena, Queensland, the census of 2016 claimed a population of just over 5,500. Yet the mighty Serena Crocodiles produced 4 internationals with Wendell Saylor, Martin Bella, Dale Shearer and yourself. What is it about the area and about rugby league in the area?
Well, it's got a great history. You know, they've always been a force in the Mackay competition, even from their inception into the league. So they were the East Coast Rugby League club, and they changed their name to the Serena Crocodiles. I think in the late 70s and early 80s. So, but everything was rugby league there. You know, one of the great founders of the club is Alfie Abdullah, and Alf was one of the chiefs, head chiefs on the railway. Okay. So I think that was a connection. Everyone, you know, if you wanted to play for Serena, you had to work on the railway. Yeah. But in saying that, you know, you're allowed time off to play footy. There was no one late at training. You know, football was basically the be all and end all of Serena, and there was a great following. And you look at Marty Bella. Marty Bella was and Rowdy obviously were the first ones to go down to the big time. Marty went to Brisbane, and Rowdy was lucky enough to go straight to Manly in Sydney. And we just looked up to them. You know, everyone. You know, we loved Rowdy because he was such a superstar. Yeah. You know, I know Marty was is one of the greats, but he wasn't the try scoring machine that Rowdy was. Yeah. And he just, when Rowdy burst onto the scene, he was just electric. And I know there was a lot of young kids in Serena that wanted to be like Dale Shearer. And then, you know, we obviously myself went down in 92 to trial, and yeah, luckily enough, I wasn't coming back to Serena with my pants hanging around her ankles. And then Wendell, you know, he got his opportunity with Brisbane, which was great.
What appealed about moving to the Gold Coast and playing with the side that at times was going through some real struggles?
Yeah, well, it sort of didn't come around about that. When I trialled for Western Suburbs in 91, at the end of 91, and I went down and trialled at Campbelltown, and I had made their squad, hadn't signed the contract, but I had made their 21 squad. Wow. So I was actually going down to Sydney, and Grant Bell, who was the 21, had just been appointed the 21s coach in 91 for the 92 season at Seagulls. He asked me to basically come in for a trial. So we arrived. I remember it vividly. I arrived on the 2nd of January. They put me up in a motel down at Tweed for a couple of days, and then we started on the 4th of January. I walked into the office at 9 o'clock in the morning, and Jamie Goddard, who I knew we'd played against each other in the Foley Shield competition in North Queensland, he was sitting in the office, in the main office. I walked in, we smiled at each other, go, what are you doing here? You know, what is this place? I didn't even know who the Seagulls were, basically. Yeah. But, you know, we were just two young kids having a crack, and we had to make our way down on our own accord to make it.
That could be the first of many Jamie Goddard stories over the next 40 minutes. Wally Lewis was the coach. Wally Lewis, for a young bloke from country Queensland, is that dreams come true to play under the King or even see the King up close and personal?
Well, again, we didn't know. I didn't know who was the coach. I really hadn't taken much notice of the Sydney Rugby League. I honestly did not know that the Seagulls were in the competition. Wow. You know, we were following Canterbury, we were following Canberra, you know, Balmain, even, you know, and Brisbane came in 88, so we were following those types of teams, you know, with all the Queensland superstars. So when we arrived, our first training session, the King was obviously there, and Jamie and I nearly fell over. Just could not believe that we had Wally Lewis as the coach, but we also had Graham Eadie, and I did. Look, I'm not a historian, but you know, you learn along the way. But Graham Eadie there, and Aubrey Waters there, and you know, we had the Flash there. You know, there were just legends. involved in the club.
Yeah.
Belly was the 21 side, so he was probably the odd one out.
Yeah.
So we just to have Wally there, and we had players like Brent Todd and Dale Shearer was there, which was great for me because he was married to my cousin Delise.
Yep.
We had Steve Jackson there. I stayed with Jacko for a couple of nights in that period of finding a house when I arrived. Blokes like Peter Gill and Clinton Moore.
Yep.
So we grew up following the Brisbane League. So Gilly and Clinton Moore were extremely popular when I was growing up. I think they both won. Well, they were playing with each other, but I think 86 might have been the 86 grand final, the last or 87 grand
87.
final, I think it was. Yeah. So and then they went on to play in St George. So Ray Herring was there. He was a real mentor for myself and Jamie. He was just someone we aspired to train like. He was just the the utmost professional player. Look, it was like you pinch yourself, but and we're talking with Sats there before, we had such a great young group of kids that all wanted to learn.
Unbelievable group. I mean, hindsight's lovely, but what a group of talented young footballers, 92, 93 at the Seagulls was.
Well, I remember our under-21 side, that first game, I think, a few of us went up to reserve grade, but we had that first game, I remember, there was Jamie, myself, Sats, Adrian Vowles, Wayne Bartram, you had Robert Tocco, Andrew Whittington. We were all playing. We all went on to play first grade.
Yeah.
It was such a... And, the great thing about it, we're all very good friends to this day for that moment in time that we had in 92.
What do you remember of your first grade debut?
Mate, I was very nervous. Yeah, I was. I started the year in 93 in reserve grade, and I think it was either Peter Gill or Darren Wallens got injured, and the King showed enough faith in me to call me up. And mate, I was very raw. I'd tell you, I didn't know what to expect, and I remember that year. I think I went into that game at 98 kilos.
Wow!
And I finished the game at 90 kilos. So all I did was just tackle my ring off.
Is that legitimate?
Yeah.
8 kilos of body fluid.
Of fluid. Yeah. So I just remember it. I was just exhausted after the game, and it was just a great experience. I had all my mates down from Serena.
Oh, that's cool.
And you could imagine the old Seagulls Stadium. You could hear it was so close. You could hear it, and I could hear my mates, calling out, and I'm just going, this is surreal. This is unbelievable. I remember a time in 92, and I was only, we were playing at the Sydney Football Stadium, and there was no one there for the under-21s generally. But I'd pass this ball and set up a try for my winger, and I'm walking back, and they've got me on the big screen. I'm thinking, look at that. I'm on the big screen. I've made it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just from a kid from Serena to playing that, especially debuting under Wally Lewis, is just unbelievable.
Any elite athlete will tell you it takes more than just being physically fit to be at your best. And our friends at Galaxy Finance can have you at the top of your financial game. From home loans to investments and self-managed super funds, they provide complete solutions. Call Galaxy Finance on 1300 91 7740 and mention you heard it on Andy Raymond Unfiltered to get an obligation-free chat to see how Galaxy Finance can assist you.
3 seasons with the Seagulls. Was there a moment or a memory that stands out above others? Or does it become a blur?
Look, we always wanted to beat the Broncos. If the Broncos ever came to town, we really wanted to beat them. They were the 92, 93. They were the premiers. So it was always we always got ourselves up for that particular game. 93 was uneventful year for the Seagulls. I think we only won one and drew one that whole year. So look, we certainly didn't have a winning culture, that's for sure. But I think '94 we played the Broncos at Carrara Stadium in a packed house, and we convincingly beat them 25-10, whatever it was. But I scored a couple of tries and kicked a couple of goals that night, but we, certainly I think the next week brought us back to reality. I think we got beaten by Canberra by 50. We're still drunk.
Yeah, exactly. Enjoying the celebrations. Right time, right place for a rugby league player. Super League arrived. The game exploded. The madness was all time.
Yep.
You affiliated with Super League and were shipped off to Adelaide.
Yeah, I guess you got to understand that. When we were playing at the Seagulls, you had to play footy to get paid.
Yep.
Basically, so I think my first year in '93, you had to play 21 games to get $30,000. I mean, that was a contract.
Jeez.
So fortunately, I played 19 and 2 reserves, and they still weren't going to give me my money. So I had to basically beg them for the money, but I eventually got it, which was good. And it wasn't lucrative back then.
Yep.
When Super League came along, it sort of it justified the sacrifices that we were making.
Well, it became a genuine career, didn't it?
100%, and it paid well. So, I remember coming. I think it was '95. I think Donny Furness. We were all on the bus coming back from a particular game, and Donny Furner, stands up at the front of the bus and basically said, "Okay, guys, the ARL have given me a bit of money to spend between all of you, and I want you to come in individually and see me during the weeks coming." And he said, "Yeah, well, look, we've got $500,000 for all of you, and we're going to split that up between." There was 40 or 50 of us.
Oh.
And we knew that players were getting signed on for $500,000.
Yeah.
So it was
split 50 ways.
No. So Donny, I went and saw Donny, and he offered me $40,000. And I just said, look, and I luckily enough, I had been asked to come into a meeting with Super League, and there was a few of us. There was about 7 or 8 of us who went to that particular meeting, and they were giving us $30,000 just to sign on, and for someone who wasn't in a position to bargain,
yeah,
and $100,000 sign on, I thought, God, this is all my Christmases come at once.
It's a no-brainer.
I'll go and buy a house if I can do it. So yeah, it wasn't a big decision.
You signed with Adelaide, but played with the St George Dragons. It's an awkward story, a different story. Run us through the timeline and what happened.
Yeah, so at the end of '95, we'd signed Super League, and we basically put on the sheet that where we wanted to go. So I wanted to go to North Queensland or Brisbane,
yep,
or Canterbury. So they were my three choices. And again, I didn't have any bargaining power. No one, I wasn't really well known or anything, yep, like that. So I or the other option was all the discards go to Adelaide. So at the end of '95, there was a whole squad of us. There was the under-20s and the reserve graders and first graders. We all went down to Adelaide and trained and had a great basically 6 weeks before the kick off to the season. With about a week to go before the season started, we lost the court battle, and we weren't allowed to proceed with that Super League that year, that '96 year. So I flew back to the Gold Coast. I went and trained at with the Chargers. Phil Economides was the coach there, and I knew Phil was my '95 reserve grade coach.
Yep.
And we'd made the finals that year, so I had a good relationship with Phil. So, but again, it felt like I wasn't going anywhere.
Okay.
It felt like this is just going to be deja vu, and we're not going to have that. I needed something different, to progress. Mate of mine, Adrian Brunker, he'd gone down to St George he'd spoken to Dave Waite, and Waite rang me up and said, "Look, mate, you come down here and train. I can't promise you anything, but you train hard, and we'll give you a shot. Brunks believes in you." I said, "Oh, mate, I'd love to." So, yeah, I flew down. Took me 4 weeks, of playing reserve grade to get into the first grade squad, and I sort of never looked back. It was just one of those years that you couldn't write about. We just exceeded all expectation. We had a terrific run of winning, and we scraped into the finals. First time playing finals in first grade, and we walked into the grand final against a red hot Manly side.
It was a red hot Manly side too, wasn't it? What was the grand final experience like for a boy from Sarina?
Oh, mate, it was something that you only dream of. You grew up watching the '89 grand final as a spectacle, and one day you'd love, but you never thought you'd ever get there. It was just it just went so quick, and I really didn't I didn't have time to think about it, to tell you the truth. It just went so fast. But all the expectation, like the St George Dragons have such a great support base, and I just remember, the stadium just full of red and white, and and the Manly side, everyone hated Manly, so
still do. Yep.
Everyone still hates Manly, and it was just fantastic for a young kid to get there. But I really wasn't prepared for that day. Mentally, I don't think.
Gee, a lot of players say that about their first grand final, especially when success comes young. They almost think it happens every year, so you don't grasp it as much as maybe you'd love to in hindsight.
And it goes so quick. It's like your body is just like in slow motion. You can see everything, but it just goes so quick, and it's over. And you just don't realise, you can't even remember what you've actually done on the field. But I wasn't, I wasn't prepared for the day. I was thinking about chipping and chasing and winning a Clive Churchill. That's what I was thinking about. But I wasn't focused. You learn. I was, fortunate enough to play in a few more grand finals. So, you learn from that experience, and, if you just focus on your job and what you have to do on that particular day, that should have been enough.
That defines you as a footballer. You focus on your job and you do your job. The other 12 blokes can worry about theirs.
But it's very hard to minimalise all that down into one thing.
I bet.
So it's very, very difficult to just think about, and not get overawed. Like I just knew, even with this year's grand final with Penrith and the Storm, the Storm have got the super coach and the super player to keep the level head.
Yep.
Where Ivan, just wishing for a grand final, and his young kids, probably just a bit overawed for that particular day, and I think it really affected them leading into that grand final.
The Adelaide Rams, they would enter the comp in '97. You were only a young bloke, but along with your teammates, you were tasked with introducing the game to a foreign audience in Adelaide. You were as much footballers as you were ambassadors and promoters. Different times, difficult times, but I'd imagine enjoyable.
Oh, difficult, but very enjoyable. The guys that we had down there, you don't meet too many, dickheads in rugby league. There's and those type of people soon get weaned out of the clubs pretty quickly. It was challenging for the fact that we weren't playing AFL, and the Crows had just won the flag in '97. The Crows were winning the flag in '97, and they backed it up in '98. So it was very challenging just competing down there. We were seen as a bit of a novelty. We weren't winning, which was difficult in itself. You look at the clubs like Melbourne. they won from day one.
Success breeds interest.
They won a grand final in their second year.
Yeah.
You know, everything was set up for Adelaide to work.
Yep.
They just didn't have the right coaching staff and the right people running the place at that particular time who knew rugby league.
Yep.
And that was their downfall. And you know, when you're losing a lot, it's very difficult. You know, you're living in a remote place in Australia, and you're away from family and friends, and so it took its toll. And look, I was lucky that I made that 97 Queensland Super League side.
Yeah,
and I you know, built up a really good friendship with Wayne Bennett.
Speaking of debuting for Queensland, the game was at that time split into two competitions. Did it feel like the Origin you grew up with, or was something missing?
Well, all the legends that I wanted to play with were playing for Super League for the Queensland side. You had Alfie and Kevy and Steve Renouf and Darren Smith and you know Gordon Tallis, Brad Thorne, you know, Shane Webke. You know, they were the, if they weren't going to, I'm sure if the comp were together, there would have been a lot of ARL players in that Queensland side that wouldn't have made it. Yeah. For the fact that all the great players were playing for the Super League side.
Yep.
So, you know, I know it's not recognised as an Origin, but for someone growing up in Queensland, you know, to represent in your first Queensland, to get your first Queensland jersey was, you know, was something special.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you recognise it as an Origin?
Yeah. Look,
so you should.
Look, I always, you know, say that I played 2 Super League Queensland games. So, and unfortunately, they don't recognise it, and that's just how it is. But it really it didn't really diminish the fact that I'd represented Queensland. I know, you know, talking about Jamie Goddard, you know, we've got such a great Jimmy and I have been best mates for you know, since the day we met at Seagulls, and he was the first to congratulate me, and I was the first to congratulate when he represented the ARL Origin side in '97. So look, it is what it is, and but you know, it's still certainly an honour, that's for sure.
That's Jimmy Goddard's story number 2. He was your flatmate down here on the Gold Coast in the early years, maybe the loosest of all time?
Well, yeah, you give him a few beers, give him 20 beers, he gets very loose. But yeah, look, we actually lived together for about probably 6 weeks before his partner, now his wife, came down with their little son. They were back in Mount Isa. And we were living, you know, just up the road from the stadium along Kennedy Drive at South Tweed Heads. And 2 boys from the bush, we thought we were in, like, you know, we thought we were in the metropolis. We thought we were in the big city.
Yeah.
But there wouldn't, you know, I don't think Tweed Heads probably would have been as big as Mount Isa back then. But we, you know, we slept. We didn't have any furniture in the house. We bought blow-up mattresses. He slept with this baseball bat that had these prongs that hung out the back of it, at the end of them. So, and I slept with my my Stanley, just not my Stanley, my what do you call it? Some sort of sharp knife it was.
Yeah.
So, and we just thought someone's just, you know, 2 young kids from the bush. We're gonna get broken into every night here. So we slept one eye open, one eye closed.
That is brilliant.
For 6 weeks.
We hope you're enjoying the Kevin Campion story in part 2, his time at the Warriors and Cowboys, and reflections on his career and life so far. Before you go, we'd really appreciate a 5-star rating and review on whatever podcast app you're listening on. And every week we're giving away an unfiltered trucker's hat for best review. Make sure you come back soon, legends. Welcome back to Andy Raymond Unfiltered, the Kevin Campion story. This is part 2. On part 1, the heartbreak of a bitter split that led him to living in his car and the frustrating early years of his football career. The story continues.
Mate, amazingly, after 97 you were let go by the Rams, but from a negative to a positive, you ended up with the Broncos.
Yep.
A blessing in disguise, 2 premierships in 3 years. Both were great, obviously. Personally, did one feel different from the other?
Well, yeah. Yeah, they did. 98 was, I was on the bench in a star-studded red-hot side. Probably one of the best grand final Brisbane sides of all time. Fortunate enough to be included in the 17, but you look at 2 years later, we really had to change the way the Broncos played. We weren't the flashy score from any area of the field, 100-metre tries. We weren't that. So Wayne basically changed the whole game plan. Was built around our forward pack, and it was a really intimidating forward pack. And
oh yes,
I know we went through the 99 season. We had a really bad trot of losses. I think we won 1 out of our first 11 games, and then we won 10 out of our last 11 games to scrape into the final. Yeah. We scraped into the final, and that really took a lot out of us. We were exhausted. I think we played Cronulla in the first, one of the first, I think it was 8v1 back then, and they gave us a really good touch-up.
Yep.
And I just, so the 2000 season was just built around our forward pack and the grind. And, if teams could get over the top of that, then, they deservedly won the game. But it wasn't that many times they did. We were really hardened, and we were probably a bit embarrassed by the 99, because it wasn't the Broncos of old in 99. So I think we had a point to prove. 98 was just an amazing side. You still had the Renoufs, the Smiths.
Yep.
Mickey Hancock was playing. You Kevy Walters, Alfie. And, we just knew we had that strike power out wide. We still had a great forward pack, don't get me wrong. It's a tremendous forward pack. But that 2000 side, we didn't have that strike out wide. It still had some wonderful players, don't get me wrong. But we built our whole season on our defence and our grind.
Is it this period in your career where you grew as a player?
Yeah, I think 98 was a special year. I really wanted to embrace the Broncos culture and learn about how to win basically. And it wasn't it didn't come a lot in my earlier years. You know? Winning was just it wasn't there. It wasn't until I got to St George that I tasted, probably beat Manly for the first time, or, there's a lot of teams I beat for the first time in that 96 season. So mentally, Wayne was fantastic, and he was very simple, a very simplistic coach. He wasn't over the top, never overcoached or anything like that. Everything was just, it was very, very simple, and he had you, and that's why I think, he's the greatest coach that the game's seen. That he's so you just want to play for him for one, but he breaks the game down in very simply that everyone understands it, and all basically everyone knows their job, and you have to have those quality players in that side to let them do their job, but everyone around them, they just have to do a job. Yeah.
Does Wayne make you a better player and a better person?
Certainly a better person, yeah. If I a number of times I've been, crying out for, something in my life or something's missing, I'll ring Wayne and just for a bit of advice. And he always takes the phone calls. Even now, look, I could ring him. I could ring him today and
he'd be there for you.
100%. Yeah, he's that type of guy. And I think he's there not only for me, but probably every player that he's ever coached.
Who were the players you looked up to in the system and why?
I mentioned Ray Herring. Back in '92, we arrived. Ray was just one of those players that led from the front. He was always the utmost professional player. He did everything right. It's something that Jamie and I really looked up to. He'd always lead from the front. If we were, in pre-season, Ray was, even though he was one of the older guys in the team at the time. We were only 20. He was, probably 27. He was always leading from the front.
Okay.
He didn't worry about any of the other guys who didn't want to put the effort in. He just did what he had to do, and we sort of followed. All we wanted to do was beat Ray at training, so it really helped us, and it put us in good stead for probably the rest of our careers, because the harder you train, I think the better results that you get.
How hard was it? How easy was it to leave the Broncos for the Warriors? Because that's not only a football change, it's a life change.
Yeah, it was difficult. I didn't want to leave, that's for sure, and I'm pretty sure the Broncos wanted to keep me, but they weren't prepared. They weren't prepared to pay. Not that I was on big money, at the Broncos, but they didn't want to pay me any more than what I was on, and I didn't really want to get paid any less than what I was getting, because I think I was I just worked my way into that starting side, and it took 3 years to do so. But look, I'm not angry at the Broncos at all, because Wayne, when I signed over in England for Warrington, and I went over there and played for Ireland in the World Cup in 2000. And it was freezing and it was wet and cold, and I rang Wayne and just said, mate, I can't bring my kids over here, because my young fella was spent, he probably spent 3 months in hospital in Brisbane, in the hotter weather, but he had bad croup.
Okay.
During the semi-finals, he was like 3 weeks in hospital. So I rang Wayne and just said, mate, I'm not really enjoying this. Can you give me some advice? And he said, mate, I know the Warriors are looking for players. They've just been bought out from a new owner, and I'll give them a call.
This is your current club coach.
Yes.
Giving you advice and tipping you off into $1. That's awesome. Yes,
and he negotiated the whole deal for me.
Wow.
And he said, and one good thing, Campo, he said that I'm the Origin coach next year and you'll be in it.
There is a good yarn that goes around that Wayne. There's a couple of guys Wayne basically said to, if I'm coaching, you're in my side, and you're one of them. That's a cool little relationship. And
I didn't, I had this conversation when I wanted to get out of Adelaide as well.
Yeah.
I having some troubles, contractual troubles with the club.
Yep.
And I rang Wayne for some advice, and he said, leave it with me. He said, anyway, it rings me back in about a week, and he said, mate, I've got a plan. He said, I said, I want you to sign with the Hunter Mariners. He said, I said, okay, yeah, no worries. He goes, look, I know they're going to fold. They won't be in the 98 season. They're going to fold. I said, okay, no worries. So why do you want me to sign there? He said, when they fold, we're going to pick you up. So I said,
so you could collect the money from the Mariners and he could get you on the cheap under the salary cap.
Well, that was his plan. Yeah. So, and that's exactly what happened. So I'm getting married on the Gold Coast in '97. And I'm thinking, no, they're not going to fold. They're not going. And I'm ringing Muzz up. Graham Murray was the coach. And he goes, I said, Muzz, do you want me to come down and start pre-season? And he said, no, mate, Camper, you just stay up there. You don't worry about it at the moment. Next minute they folded. And Wayne rings me on the golf course. He said, mate, well, they folded. I'll see you training on Tuesday.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so like twice in my career that the big fellas sort of come up trumps for me.
What were your first impressions of the Warriors as a club, but as a lifestyle change?
The lifestyle over in New Zealand is fantastic.
Yeah.
The people are beautiful. It's cold and wet. It rains nearly every day, I think. But we really enjoyed it. It was only 3 hours flight from Brisbane.
Yep.
Our in-laws and parents could come over if they wanted to, but it was far enough away for them not to.
Yes.
So it was good. It was look, we really enjoyed it. Player wise, I've played with some really good players, but none better than some of the players I played with in New Zealand. Stacey Jones, I've got 3 favourite players that I ever played with, in Elfie and Lockie and Stacey. They're my 3 favourite players. And some of the talent that the Warriors had at that time, you had Clinton Tupy and Ali Latiti, and I'm sure you would have called a number of games with those kids just carving teams up. Yeah.
The cool thing about that is you ended up co-captain with Stacey Jones.
Yeah. It was. Look, I rang Wayne and told him that they'd offered me the co-captaincy. He said, "Mate, I'm really proud of you. I think that'd be a good thing for you."
Yeah.
Which was lovely. And the thing in the second year I was there, they offered me the captaincy alone,
outright, yeah,
and I knocked it back for the fact that I didn't want to do that and not do it with I thought Stacey deserved to be captain of that club, and so I turned it down.
Griffin Air Conditioning offers the highest quality of air conditioning sales and service across the Sydney metropolitan area, providing installation and maintenance to commercial, domestic and industrial customers. Working with this team, you'll be guaranteed the latest services, technology and developments in the industry. Visit griffinair.com.au and tell them we sent you for a cool deal.
Are you a natural leader, or is it something you've had to work on?
Certainly had to work on it. Look, I felt in my last year at the Broncos that I was becoming a leader. Wayne had put me in positions within the team, leadership roles, and that was fantastic. But I really took it upon myself to lead from the front when I got to the Warriors.
Campo, does being a leader go back to Ray Herring and watching what Ray Herring does?
Yep.
Because you've spoken glowingly about Ray twice,
Yep.
and I'm judging that you thought Ray Herring was the leader that you aspired to.
100%. And one great thing about Ray, he never took a shortcut, and
Yep.
That was really installed in myself and Jamie. And that's what I tried to install when I got to the Warriors. You could just tell, they weren't training like the Aussies were training. They had certainly natural ability, but they were always looking for an out, even on the training paddock. So if it got tough, there was a lot of guys there that would put up their hand, and they just didn't know how to handle that that barrier.
Some might say 18 years later, there's still a little bit of that in the Warriors. Are they fixable?
Mate, they just need the right people there to fix it. You just can't rely on natural ability.
No,
and that's the thing. Yes, they can throw the ball, and they can carry the ball, and they've got so many great skills. But you need that mental toughness to be able to get into a grind with the better teams, and it's all about grinding now. You could just see Melbourne, even this year. You could just they were I know Penrith were the minor premiers, but they were always the team to beat.
Yeah.
And if you could beat them at their own game, good luck to you. But you couldn't beat them at your game. You had to beat them at their own game. You just had to stay in it until someone cracked. And that's how the Broncos were when I left them. You had to be really good on that particular day to beat the Broncos. And I that 2002 grand final, when you look back at it, all we had to do was stick to our game.
Yep.
But we decided to play the Roosters game, and they got the better of us.
Speaking of 2002, your resume moved into elite level that day, one of 5 players in the history of the game to play in grand finals with 3 different clubs. How proud of you of that?
Yeah, well, you probably didn't. I didn't know that at the time, but when you look back on your career, yeah, it is something that you're proud of. And look, I'm very fortunate enough that I played in 4 grand finals. There's a lot of my friends, didn't even play in a final series.
Yep.
So that's one thing I'm very proud of. To play in 4 grand finals with 3 different clubs is amazing. The great thing about it that you meet different people at different clubs, and you become close to those people. So I've got friends. I've got a lot of old boys events that I'm always invited to. But
it'll occupy most of your calendar.
Yeah, that's right. But very proud.
We asked you earlier about 1997 and your debut for Queensland. Around this time, you debuted as a Maroon in a united competition. Taking nothing away from 97, did this feel different?
When I actually debuted look, it felt different. It was there was years prior to that I thought I may be a chance. I remember 94. The King was the coach. He'd coached me at club level in 93.
Yep.
So I thought I might, if I was playing well enough, I might be a start, but it wasn't to be. Even 98, 99 and 2000, I was playing some good football at the Broncos, some consistent football, but it wasn't to be. It just wasn't to be. I was up against...
Have a look at the back rowers around that era.
Well, you look at Darren Smith and Jason Smith and, those types of players.
Yeah.
They're very, good quality. And the hardest thing that you're dealing with is the number of players from the Broncos club.
Yep.
You can't put everyone in there. Someone's got to miss out. You take that on the chin. But look, when I got the call up in 2001, it was special. I was the first Warriors player to represent Queensland, and we had the great thing about it that everyone in that side, I know there was a lot of debutants in that side, but we'd all either played in finals or grand finals. So
debutants but experienced.
That's right. We're accustomed to the bigger games. It was just that particular night. It was the last State of Origin at the Old Lang Park.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't go past the Caxton because there was too many people on the road. We couldn't get through, so we had a detour. But I had family and friends. The old man was down from Serena. Came into the sheds after the game, and we celebrated pretty hard that night.
Had a dream come true. Lang Park. The old school Lang Park, not as it is now.
Well, so many emotions go through. I probably the last. I remember the 2000 and the 2002 grand finals, and you're singing the national anthem. You're tearing up, but that night at Lang Park, the old Lang Park, I was very emotional. Crying.
Yeah.
Just look, it's a big journey. Look, it's a long journey to debut at 29. Or 30, whatever I was, but there's a lot of dislocations and busted ligaments and there's a lot of stitches in that head to get to that particular game. So, and it's a sacrifice. Not everyone is a is a Cameron Smith who can play 500,000 games,
Yeah.
you know, and debut at such an early age and play 50 Origins, you know. Everyone has their own journey, but, you know, and it's a big sacrifice.
What's the one moment or the one memory that stands out from State of Origin for you? Is there one?
Yeah, I as I said, I think the memory that I had was, you know, Gordy Tallis is just was leading that first Origin that I was involved with. He, you know Gordy personally, and he's got these crazy eyes, and you just
Yes.
And I've known the Tallis family for a long time. I played junior footy with his older brother Wally.
Wally, yeah.
Look, it was just, and if you look back, you know, from under 12s, or, you know, even you've got all these kids growing up in North Queensland playing in Townsville or the Foley Shield sort of encatchment.
Yep.
And you'll read names like Wendell Saylor and Gordon Tallis and you know, Kevin Campion, and you know, I loved Gordon.
Yeah.
I loved his passion, and I loved that there's no way you're going to lose a game with Gordon in your side, you know. So that first game when Gordy let us out, being part of that, my debut, I mean, it was just amazing.
Some blokes are leaders naturally, some aren't. Some become leaders, and some can't. That's what you had a reputation for. Why would your teammates see you as a leader, Campo, if you had to self-assess?
I think I was very honest, to the point of you know, bringing some guys to tears.
Yep.
I never cut a corner, whether it be you know, on the training paddock. I think, you know, you don't cut corners on the train paddock because it'll reflect on the field.
Yep.
And I think, you know, I led by example, I guess. Not that I was a huge talker or anything like that. I just, you know, I was very, very harsh on at the Warriors at that particular time. They needed to be, you know, dealt with, because some of the things they used to do on the field you just shake your head at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was very hard to tone them down. I just tried to show them, you know, what it was like, you know, to play it. This is how the Broncos win it. This is how, you know, if we're good enough, we can be that good.
You'd finish your career in Townsville with the Cowboys, really consistent. Everyone knew exactly what they were getting from you every week. You'd retire at 31. Did the body go or did the mind go?
No, the body was going. Like I my last year at the Cowboys, I tore my bicep, and it put me out for 10 weeks, and that was you know, that was a big blow, I guess. You know, I love playing footy, obviously, and you know, I think the Cowboys just got me up there to change they needed a big culture change up there. You know, they thought they weren't winning games, that's for sure, when I first got there, but they thought they were rock stars. You could go out at any night in the week, one of the boys would be out there on the drink, and that was the culture that they had up there. It took 12 months to sort of get everyone on board.
Yeah.
But again, it was hard work. Billy Johnson was unbelievable. You know, he was. You know, if you're going to change a culture in any side, you need a Billy Johnson. And mate, he my first training session up there, I'd gone up there after the grand final, so I've gone from leaving New Zealand at, you know, it's like 13 degrees, getting up to Townsville, it's 30 degrees. So, and I was up there looking for a house, and Billy said, mate, I rang him, I said, mate, I'm just coming up to have a look for a house. He goes, yeah, no worries, mate, you just do what you have to do. Anyway, he rings me. For 3 days into it, I get a call from Billy. I said, why don't you'll come in and train? And I said, I didn't think I had to train. He said, yeah, you've got to come in and train. So I went in there and did a weight session, and he was doing these like this weight session was just short intervals, just pumping it out. Anyway, we're doing a prone row, and I was that exhausted after this session. I had no weight on the bar, and I couldn't get the bar off the rack. I was that exhausted from the and I crawled outside the gym area, and I was vomiting on the way out as I was crawling out of the gym area. And everyone's laughing at me. Yeah, Campo, this is what you got to expect. And I'm thinking, I don't need this at 31. I'm going to retire. So I rang my wife at the time. I said, I just think I might call it quits. I'm just going, I don't want to put my body through this for another 2 years. And took me 2 years. Took me 12 months to acclimatise. Even though I was from North Queensland, it was just the training was just relentless. Like Billy,
and that humidity,
but everything was intense.
Yep.
There was no Billy. There was no shortcuts. I remember one particular day, pre-season we'd do a cardio session, like 10 on the run, 10 on the bike, 10 on the rower, and then you'd go outside and do 7 laps in 10 minutes. Okay, so this particular day, and I dehydrate really quickly.
Okay.
Really, really quickly, so I can go bang. I remember I was at Adelaide, we were playing in Darwin, and I didn't last a half because I dehydrate really quick. Anyway, I've done the 10 on the bike, I've done the 10 on the row, and then I've had to go out and do the 7 laps in 10 minutes. So I'm doing the laps. First one's cruel, second, third, fourth. It got to me, 7th lap.
Yep.
And I've missed my time by 0.03 of a second, or 0.3 of a second, or even 3 seconds. But the penalty was I had to do an 80k bike ride.
80k?
I had to ride 80 because I missed by 3 seconds. I was the oldest in the squad. He made me do an 80k bike ride, and it was just one thing after another. It was just, but 12 months later, I just loved, I was doing the extra stuff with the younger boys, showing them, this is what we've got to do.
Billy Johnson, a legendary hooker, played for the Canterbury-Bankstown Bulldogs, former Australian middleweight champion as well. Very tough unit, and him in strength and conditioning revolutionised the game. It revolutionised how individuals trained and how they performed. And Campo, you're not alone in being a Billy Johnston victim. But what Billy and yourself did was set up a mentality in North Queensland that got them to their first grand final.
Yeah, look, and also Muzza. Muzza was, obviously a big influence on that. He was a great man manager, and he knew how to bring a side together.
Yeah, he did.
He had a wonderful assistant coach in Neil Henry.
Yep. And
it just worked. But also winning breeds confidence,
yep.
and when you're winning, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter how bad you're playing. You may have one or two players playing bad, but you can rectify it the next week. But by the end of the 2004 season, we'd made our first finals. We'd beaten the Broncos for the first time, and we were one game away from a grand final, which was unbelievable. The Roosters are very lucky that they played in that 2004 grand final, because we certainly deserved to be there as well. 6
clubs in 11 years. Who's your team?
Oh, the Broncos always, have always, because they had so much success there. The Warriors and St. George, I had such a wonderful time, and the families had such a wonderful time at the Warriors. We just, they really put their, arms out for us and welcomed us. So that'll be a bit of a highlight, I think. Look, I love the Warriors and the Broncos. I only had 1 year at St. George. St. George, a lot of St. George people still recognise you.
Yeah.
Because they had such a great following, and they're, such a traditional club.
Yep.
My first year at the Gold Coast Seagulls, I've got so many good friends from that particular time. Some great stories from those old days, that's for sure.
A wonderful career, mate. Kevin Campion, you, sir, are a legend.
We hope you enjoyed this Legends Series interview with one of my personal favourites, Kevin Campion. Make sure you come back soon, Legends.